you again, and thank you to Spoken Ink, Burnaby Writers, and Lara for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be participating, and I appreciate all the work that goes in behind the scenes to bring us this Zoom session today. I'm going to start with a reading from my recent book, Locked Up, which is a high interest novel aimed at struggling or reluctant readers. It is a realistic YA book published by Lorimer Kids and Teens in Toronto, and you can get it through Chapters Indigo or order it through Black Bond Books. And I believe there might even still be some copies at the Indigo in South Surrey. Strider, as he is known on the inside, has been in juvie for some time. He learns that he may get early parole and begins to sabotage his chances for getting out because he doesn't feel he deserves to be free. He hasn't dealt with the harm his actions caused a family on the outside. This early chapter still bites with the sting of his anger. Chapter 3, which is called Visitor's Day. It's Saturday, and my dad's coming to visit. When I know dad's coming to visit, it's like I can't breathe. Collins arrives to take me to the visitors' area. It's Blue Day, so I'm wearing blue sweats. I arrive in the visitors' area before my dad. There are 6 tables with 4 chairs at each one. The candy and drink machines are against the far wall, opposite the door, where they let people into the room. Collins has to supervise all visits, so he waits off to the side while I grab a Coke from the machine and wait for my dad at an empty table. Dad's late, as usual. Given that we don't get much time as it is, it always pisses me off. Another 10 minutes of waiting. A whiff of aftershave lets me know that my dad has arrived. Funny how you show up when it's time to leave, I say. I turn my chair backwards and lean my arms on the back of it, putting a barrier between me and my dad. I don't know why I bother coming, Dad says. All I get is attitude. He stands, looking lost. I gesture for him to sit down. He glances around the room, which is busy with other visitors. He grabs a chair and rests his hands on the table. Then the long silence begins. This is how it plays out every time. We sit in silence for most of the visit. My dad keeps his head low and moves his clasped fingers in and out. I stare at his balding head. Other than the hushed voices of the rest of the visitors, the only sound is me slurping my Coke. This time, Dad surprises me by being the first to break the silence. In my 2.5 years of being in, he's never done that before. So I'm not good at putting my thoughts into words, he says in a quiet voice. But the other day I was walking Gemini down at Second Beach. You know how he loves to run? Well, he was pulling on his leash and practically yanking my arm out when I realized I can picture my dog and all the times I used to run with him. Suddenly I'm pissed at my dad. The words come flying out of my mouth. What the hell? The one thing I miss most about being in here is my dog. And that's what you decide to finally start talking about? People at the other table stop talking and stare in our direction. Collins has crossed his arms over his huge chest. He looks at me and raises an eyebrow. How am I supposed to know what topics are off limits? Says Dad. How come whenever I come here, I feel like I'm the one who's on trial? I don't know. My thoughts are all jumbled in my head. I can't figure out what to say. Maybe that's why my dad gets quiet. I only know I feel like it was his fault that day. He's why I took the car and got into this mess. Dad looks at the other visitors. He lowers his voice and says, I don't have to come to see you. I don't have to spend time here. I missed going ice fishing with my buddies from work. They went to Sheridan's cabin at the lake, but where did I go today? Oh, to see my son, who never talks to me unless it's to give me attitude. Now my brain is on fire. So go to the stupid cabin. I'm just some check mark on your to-do list anyway. I stand and lean over the table, spewing hot words in my dad's direction. You know I wouldn't have gotten that car if you had just driven me to school. Instead, you cared more about someone who was only around for a few days, like always. Oh, So this is my fault now? You really think I'm the reason you're stuck in here? I sit back down and shake my head. It was his fault that day, and he's the reason Mum left. If he'd only been more interested in my life, maybe things wouldn't have gotten so screwed up. My thoughts must show in my facial expression, because Dad takes one look at me and stands up. He's skinnier than the last time I saw him. His clothes are rumpled and have stains on them, like he forgot to do laundry. I watch as he stretches one arm into the sleeve of his jacket, then the other arm. That means we're done for today. That means whatever else I have to say needs to wait until the next time I see him. Dad walks away and opens the door to leave the visitor's room. I quickly call out, "You were saying something about Gemini. Is he okay?" Dad's words follow him out the door. "He's fine." The visit is over. I watch as the door shuts behind him, the door that leads outside, the door that takes him home, home to my dog. The walk back to my room is slow. Back there, I'm angry that things went south so fast with my dad. I bang my head against the wall. Macaroni knocks back. So you'll see that my main character, Kevin, has a lot of work ahead of him. I hope I piqued your interest. To get started with this novel, I'm also going to read just a small snippet of the next chapter, just to give you a sampling of things to come. This chapter is called Trigger. Still reeling from my visit with Larkin, I feel the rest of the week go by quickly. Wired gives me crap daily about seeing Larkin. I take it. I figure it's better to make him think I'm not going to see his sister again. That way he won't make my life even more of a living hell between visits. I also bribe him with some cash to keep both him and the other dudes off my back. But I'm not seeing Larkin today. Instead, I'm getting ready for the visit with Aisha. When I woke up this morning, I was shaking. The court trial was vivid in my mind. The feel of the chairs, how they were cold and hard. The air in the room lacked oxygen. I remember how my temples pinched with stress. I spent a lot of time looking at my hands in my lap on the day of sentencing. I couldn't look at the man's wife. During the hearing, I learned about the son and the daughter, how they were just a bit older than me. They didn't attend. I remember their mom saying it would be too much for them. Hell, it was too much for me, but I had to be there. I had to face the consequences of my actions. I had no choice. And today, my heart feels like lead. How have I been able to block out this feeling for so long? I know I've been scared about life on the outside, but maybe something else has been keeping me here. Maybe I'm afraid of facing Aisha. I'm afraid of facing the man's family because of what I did. So I think I'll stop with it there for the main reading, just to make sure we have time for fitting everything in. But I hope that this does pique your interest, and maybe you will go seek Locked Up out at your local library or your bookstore. And thanks in advance for your patronage. So I'm going to switch gears now and read a bit of poetry. I'm also a poet at heart, and I wrote my first poem at the age of 8, and poetry continues to sustain me, and especially has this past year. I wrote this first poem I'm going to share here during the Poetry Marathon in June, where, as Lara said in my intro, I wrote 12 poems to 12 prompts in 12 hours. And if I'd been brave, maybe I would have tried the 24-hour one. The theme that I ended up mostly working with in the poems that I created during the marathon was my recent retirement. So this poem also has retirement as its focus, and it connects my prose work and my poetry because the prompt asked us to find a novel on our bookshelf and use the last line. Of course, my writing desk and my bookshelf have all my books, and this is my first published novel, and I ended up using the last line from Benched as the first line in this piece of poetry. It's called The Stage Set. Maybe we could eat blackberries together now that my days will sprawl into tomorrows with the ease of a cat jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Maybe we could dance under a marmalade moon, harvested with songs of the past, twirling into twilight's meandering hours. Maybe we could lounge on the beach, the tide washing over our toes until the other side of the noon sun brings siestas and spirited dreams. Maybe this could be the next scene, the opening act of the final play, the stage set, if only just for one. This next poem I'm going to read is currently a work in progress. The original version was part of a CV2 two-day poem contest, and I am now editing it for possible publication. But as I mentioned, it's still a bit rough and does need a bit more editing, but I wanted to share it here today just so I can hear it and see where I can work to improve the piece. You'll likely guess who and what it is about by the title, and I did keep a few of the 10 words that we have to use in the CV2 contest for the 48 hours. It's called 4 Years Ago and Still Counting. Someone absquatulated reason the day our comrades took to the polls. Unroofed bigotry granted vocal discord to the rabble that paraded across the country, their banners giving rise to a dank hatred that had always simmered beneath the surface, waiting for permission, wrought from a poverty of soul, dispensing brutality, shaping new words on our tongues, leaving in their wake an arsenal of intolerance. This intemperance and fear settled into the bones of our future. Faltering beneath the weight of ignorance, copacetic hairdos and rapacious grins should always be suspect. Though we bunk with you on the global map, we do not have to surrender to your bombastic slogans. Borders of the mind can resist and hold back the rolling prejudice of time that knocks at our hearts. But how to pick up and move forward again, to undo and redo and find our way, the energy to make change, to rise up, to see the possible. We need only recall that flowers still grow through cracks in concrete. And this next poem I'm going to share was written during the Poetry Marathon a few years ago about the fire raging that summer. And sadly, it's still pertinent today, especially as most of us are dealing with the poor air quality this afternoon. So my theme in this poem, if we extend it, also resonates, hopefully metaphorically, with the pandemic as well. It's called On Fire. That careless hand lingers, then flicks, and the straw yellow grass lining the highway sighs before it sparks, while the wind exhales, giving life to a flame that rises on its haunches, crawls across the land, finding its prey, licking birch bark, inhaling western hemlock, swallowing whole Sitka spruce as it jumps from one to another in search of more, while the fire rages. Through the great bare rainforest, Mother Earth's heated breath, spikes of angry light, shooting like fingers pointing in accusation, while the fire rages and the wind exhales its breath, complicit as old-growth forests, ancient cedars standing for centuries, now crumble into ash. While the fire rages, the wind holds her breath, blue skies emitting clouds for days and weeks and weeks and days. The sun and wind conspire while the fire rages, even against oceans of water, humans toiling with numb hands and hearts while the fire rages to save paradise. For 40 nights the battle ensues over silent lands. The wind brushes the skies with brilliant hues of neon pink, blood orange, death red, and still the fire rages. And this last piece is was also the final poem in the half marathon. And as this is now my 20th year since my cancer diagnosis, and I have so far been cancer free, I feel hugely blessed. This poetic form given during the marathon was new to me, and it's called a nonnet, where the first line is 9 syllables, the next line 8 syllables, then 7 syllables, and the syllable count decreases in each line until the last one, which is just 1 syllable. My poem is called Ode to Signs. Cancer caused me to take stock of my soul, discover what was missing, gave myself permission to dream in poetry, see my life in stanzas, rhyming couplets, lyrical love of words. So thank you all for listening and allowing me to share some of my work here today. I'm eager to hear Kamal and our open mic sessions.
All right.